You build a life brick by brick, sweat, sacrifice, trust, only to watch it crack under the weight of a lie. That's where my story begins, and it's a raw, unrelenting ride. If this story stirred something in your heart, give it a like, share your thoughts below, and subscribe to Revenge Forge, where every story reminds us that pain can lead to power. I'm Tanner Belmore, 41, a craft brewery owner in Denver, Colorado. My business, Belmore Brews, pulls in about $550,000 a year, serving hoppy IPAs and stouts to locals and tourists who pack our taproom nightly. I've got a 1920s bungalow in Wash Park inherited from my dad with a wraparound porch and a backyard where our border collie, Finn, chases frisbees. My wife, Kendra, 32, is a social media strategist, vibrant, quick-witted, with a smile that could sell anything. We've been married 8 years, no kids, just us and Finn, hosting game nights, skiing in Breckenridge, dreaming of opening a second brewery. I thought we were solid. Then I found out she was playing me for a fool. It started with the little things, the kind you brush off until they're screaming in your face. Kendra started coming home late, 10 p.m., blaming client pitches. Her phone was always face down, notifications silenced. She'd dodge my questions about her day, tossing out vague lines like, just networking, before changing the subject. Our Sunday brunches became her catching up with friends, names like Lauren or Jess, people I'd never met. I'd pour her a coffee, ask how her week was, and get a distracted smile, her eyes glued to her screen. I'm not the paranoid type, but I'm no idiot. Something was wrong. One night, 2 a.m., I was up late balancing the brewery's books. Kendra was out, supposedly at a work event. Finn was sprawled on the couch, and her phone buzzed on the kitchen counter. I'd never snooped, trust was our foundation, but the knot in my gut wouldn't quit. I knew her passcode, she hadn't changed it since we got married. I opened her messages, and it hit like a sledgehammer. Texts with a guy named Scott Winfield, her marketing consultant. Can't stop thinking about you, he wrote, with a winking emoji. Her reply, room 306, 8 p.m. tomorrow. Don't be late. There were photos, her in a tight dress, him smirking in a suit, their hands tangled in a dimly lit lounge. My chest tightened, but I kept digging. Months of texts, hotel plans, her laughing about how I was too busy with beer to notice. Then I found the real gut punch, an email Kendra had sent to Scott, forwarded to herself from her work account. Once the divorce is filed, I'll push for the house and a stake in the brewery. My lawyer says we can claim half. My house. My dad's house, willed to me, the one I'd spent years fixing up, from the hardwood floors to the stained glass windows. My brewery, built from a $20,000 loan into a Denver staple. She wasn't just cheating, she was plotting to strip me bare. I didn't yell. Didn't break anything. I'm Tanner Belmore, steady, strategic, like a brewer perfecting a recipe. I took screenshots, saved them to a secure drive, and started planning. By 4 a.m., I'd pulled our bank statements, $2,800 for consulting fees to Scott, $1,500 for hotel stays in Lodo, $3,500 on a credit card for work dinners. She'd never mentioned. I checked our shared calendar, her client meetings matched the hotel bookings. My anger was white-hot, but I channeled it. This wasn't about emotion. This was about winning. The next morning, I called my lawyer, Greg Harlan, a no-nonsense guy who'd handled my brewery's licensing deals. Greg, I said, voice even, Kendra's cheating, and she's after my assets. I need to lock this down. I sent him the screenshots, the statements, the email. Greg didn't flinch. Colorado's a no-fault state, but her scheme changes things. The house is your inheritance, off limits if we prove it. Her fraud attempt? We can block alimony and protect the brewery. Get me more. I didn't confront Kendra. I grilled burgers that night, asked about her day, watched her lie through her perfect smile. Swamped, she said, scrolling her phone. I nodded, sipped my IPA, and plotted. I hired a private investigator, Cole Vance, a former detective with a talent for staying invisible. Cost me $5,500 up front, but worth every penny. Cole tailed Kendra for a week, delivering a report that burned, photos of her and Scott at a rooftop bar, kissing, audio of her telling him Tanner's oblivious. We'll have the house by spring. Cole tracked Scott's Audi to a gym where he was consulting other women, rich, married, clueless. Then came a twist I didn't see coming. I got an email from a woman named Rachel, Scott's ex-girlfriend. She was 37, a financial planner, and she'd heard about me through a brewery supplier we both knew. Scott's a grifter, she wrote. He did this to me. Can we meet? We grabbed coffee at a dive in 5 Points. Rachel was all business, still pissed from Scott's betrayal. He targets women like Kendra, she said, handing me a flash drive. Bank records, emails, proof he's been fleecing married women for years. He gets them to fall, pushes for divorce, then splits the payout. The drive was dynamite. A 2020 fraud charge against Scott in Nevada dropped for lack of evidence. Texts to another woman about cashing out her ex's business. Bank transfers showing he'd pocketed $18,000 from a client. Rachel's eyes were steel. Stop him, Tanner. For all of us. I upped the game. I bought a GPS tracker $150 online, discreet enough to hide under Kendra's SUV. It confirmed she was meeting Scott 3 times a week, hotels or his loft in Reno. Cole dug deeper, finding emails between Kendra and a lawyer, a shady guy named Alan Roth. She was crafting a narrative claiming I was work-obsessed and emotionally unavailable to justify alimony and a slice of Belmore brews. She'd asked her friend Lauren to vouch for her, but Lauren wasn't biting. She sent me a burner text through Cole, Kendra's lying about you. I'm done with her. Attached was a voice memo, Kendra bragging to Lauren, Tanner's too caught up in his hops to see what's coming. Caught up? I'd built a life most men would kill for $550,000 a year, a house worth $750,000, a business that was my soul. I'd given Kendra everything, trips to Santa Fe, a home office for her projects, freedom to chase her dreams. And she thought she could paint me as the villain? I wasn't caught up. I was locked in. I set a trap. I sent Kendra an email from a fake account posing as a brewery investor interested in buying Belmore Brews, $1.5 million. Let's meet. I knew she'd jump, she was hungry for my business. She forwarded it to Alan Roth with a note, if Tanner's selling, I need my share now. Alan urged her to file for divorce ASAP to secure her claim. I sent the exchange to Greg. This is fraud, he said, almost laughing. She's cooked. Kendra kept up her act at home, all smiles and love you, while texting Scott under the table. I played along, but every night I was in my office, not brewing but building my case. Cole got more, hotel security footage of Kendra and Scott checking in, her ring off, his hand on her back. Lauren sent another gem, a screenshot of Kendra texting her about getting Tanner to crack so she could play the victim. I didn't blink. I filed it away, another round in the chamber. One night, I was at the taproom with my buddy Nate, a bar manager who'd been with me since the start. He was scrolling Reddit stories, chuckling about a guy who'd outsmarted his cheating wife. This is you, Tanner, he said, sliding his phone over. You're living a revenge-forged story. Don't let her take you down. I grinned, but it hit home. This wasn't just about surviving Kendra's betrayal, it was about owning the narrative. By week 5, Cole had enough to bury them. Scott's scam was collapsing. Rachel had tipped off another of his clients, a 42-year-old lawyer who'd cut him off. Kendra was slipping too. Lauren told Cole she'd overheard Kendra freaking out about her frozen cards. I'd moved $100,000 from our joint account to a new one, leaving her scrambling. She didn't know I had her lawyer's emails, her texts, her voice memos. She thought she was still running the show. I wasn't ready to strike yet. Timing's everything in a brew and in a fight like this. I kept my life steady, pouring pints, walking thin, shooting pool with Nate. Kendra's lies were a wildfire, but I was the stone that wouldn't burn. What would you do if you found out your life was a lie? The storm's brewing and I'm holding the reins. The Denver air was sharp at 6 a.m., the kind of crisp that cuts through your thoughts and keeps you focused. I was in the brewery's back office, tweaking a new porter recipe, the hum of the fermenters steadying my pulse. Kendra's betrayal and Scott Winfield's grift were unraveling, but I wasn't letting my guard down. My life, Belmore Brews, my dad's bungalow, Finn's loyalty, was mine to defend, and I was playing this game like a master brewer. Precise, patient, lethal. Kendra thought she had me fooled, but I was brewing a reckoning she'd never see coming. Cole Vance, my PI, called at 7 a.m. with new dirt. Kendra's slipping, he said, his voice low. He tapped into her cloud drive. Don't ask how. Cole's a ghost when it comes to tech, and found a folder labeled Client Projects. Cute cover. Inside were emails between her and Scott, laying out their endgame. One from Scott, sent at 3 a.m. Get Alan to file this week. The house could fetch $800,000. We'll split it and start fresh. My house, the one my dad left me, with its oak beams and porch swing. They were planning to flip it like some cheap investment, like my life was theirs to pawn. Another email from Kendra to her lawyer, Alan Roth. Tanner's distracted. Push for half the brewery too. My brewery, my soul. They were delusional. I sent the emails to Greg Harlan, my lawyer. This is a gift, Greg said, his tone sharp. Fraudulent intent, conspiracy to misappropriate assets. They're handing us the case. He suggested filing an emergency motion to protect my inheritance and business, citing Kendra's scheme. Colorado law's on our side, he said. The house is premarital, and the brewery's in your name. She's got no claim if we prove fraud. I told him to hit hard. No mercy. By 10 a.m., I was at the tap room, prepping for a busy Friday. Belmore Brews was my fortress. $550,000 a year in revenue, a loyal crew, customers who drive an hour for my double IPA. Kendra's lies couldn't touch this. I checked the GPS tracker on her SUV. She was at Scott's loft in Rhino, 11 a.m., no pretense of work. Cole sent photos, her leaving his place, lipstick smudged, Scott's hand on her hip. It burned, but it was fuel. Every lie was another log on the fire I was building. I tightened the noose. I called my bank and locked down our joint accounts, transferring $90,000, my share, to a new account. Kendra's cards, tied to those accounts, went dark. She'd feel it soon. I also had Cole dig into Alan Roth. The guy was a bottom feeder, known for sketchy divorce cases. Cole found a Yelp review from a former client, a woman named Carla, who'd called Alan a crook who overcharges and underdelivers. I sent it to Greg. If Roth's dirty, we can discredit him, Greg said. Keep it coming. Kendra came home that night, 9 p.m., fuming about her card getting declined at a boutique. Tanner, what's going on? She snapped, tossing her keys on the counter. Finn growled softly, sensing the tension. I leaned back, sipping a stout, calm as granite. Glitch at the bank, I said. Sort it out tomorrow. Her eyes flashed, but she backed off. She had no idea I had her emails, her texts, her whole playbook. Let her sweat. Cole's next report was a haymaker. He'd followed Scott to a meeting with another woman, not Kendra, but a 39-year-old realtor named Vanessa, married to a tech CEO. Scott was running his usual scam. Flirty texts, promises of a new life, nudging her toward divorce for a payout. Cole got audio of Scott telling Vanessa he'd leave Kendra soon. While telling Kendra he was committed, the guy was juggling knives, and they were starting to fall. I told Cole to keep eyes on Vanessa. If she turned like Rachel, we'd have another weapon. Rachel, Scott's ex, met me again at a diner in Aurora. She looked fiercer this time, like she was ready to burn Scott's world down. He's slipping, she said, sliding me another flash drive. It had bank records showing Scott had funneled $10,000 from a consulting client last year, a married woman who'd paid for his services. There was also a 2021 cease and desist letter from a woman in Boulder, accusing Scott of fraud. He's a leech, Rachel said, her voice cold. Kendra's just his latest host. I pocketed the drive. He's finished, I said, and she's going down with him. I wasn't just defending anymore, I was attacking. I had Cole plant a fake document in Alan Roth's email, disguised as a brewery financial report. It claimed Belmore Brews was facing a $400,000 debt, enough to spook Kendra into thinking my business was sinking. She took the bait, emailing Scott, Tanner's Brewery's in trouble. We need to file now before it's gone. Scott's reply was ruthless. Perfect. Push Alan. We'll take what's left. I sent it to Greg. This is conspiracy, he said, grinning. We'll shred them in court. Kendra's world was starting to crack. Lauren, her friend who'd been leaking me intel, sent a new text thread. Kendra was venting, unaware Lauren was screenshotting. Tanner's so wrapped up in his stupid brewery, he'll never catch on. Scott and I are golden. Wrapped up? I turned a garage hobby into a $550,000 empire, given her a life most would envy, trips to Telluride, a decked-out office, freedom to run her career. I wasn't wrapped up, I was all in. Lauren's turn against Kendra wasn't personal. She told Cole she was fed up with Kendra's lies, tired of being a pawn in her poor me act. I kept my life tight, taproom, gym, walks with Finn. Nate and the taproom crew, my band of brothers, kept me grounded. Over wings at a sports bar, Nate raised his glass. You're a damn tank, Tanner, he said. Most guys would have lost it. You're rewriting the rules. I smirked, But the pain was still there, deep, like a bruise that wouldn't fade. Kendra didn't just break my trust. She tried to break my life. But I wasn't folding. I was forging. Cole scored big when he accessed Scott's consulting invoices. Scott was overcharging clients, billing $6,000 for meetings that never happened. Cole sent the records to Scott's biggest client, a marketing firm, with a note, "Check your payments." By the next day, the firm dropped him, and Scott's LinkedIn profile went dark. His Audi was towed. Missed lease payments, spotted on a flatbed in Rhino. Rachel texted, "He's begging old clients for loans. Told him to kick rocks." The tide was turning, and I was steering the ship. Kendra was crumbling too. With her cards dead, she'd burned through $12,000 of her personal savings in a week. Hotels, dinners, trying to keep Scott happy. Cole got photos of her arguing with him outside a bar. Her face twisted, his hands in the air. The GPS tracker showed her driving to Alan's office 4 times in 3 days, probably pleading for a lifeline. She didn't know Greg was ready to drop a legal anvil. A motion to dismiss her alimony claim, backed by her fraud and conspiracy evidence. One night, she came home at 10 p.m., eyes swollen, voice trembling. "Tanner, can we talk?" she said, sitting at the kitchen table, Finn watching her warily. I leaned against the counter, arms crossed. "Say what you need to." She started sobbing, the full script. "I messed up. I was lonely. You were always at the brewery. Can we try again?" I let her ramble, let her think she had a chance. Then I locked eyes with her. "You weren't lonely, Kendra. You were plotting. And I know it all." Her face went white, but I didn't give her an inch. I walked to my office, shut the door, and left her with her tears. The next day, I met Greg at his Loto office, the city skyline glinting through the windows. He had the divorce papers ready, 70 pages of airtight evidence. Texts, emails, GPS data, Lauren's screenshots, Rachel's flash drives. "She's got no shot," Greg said, tapping the file. "The house is yours, the brewery's yours, and alimony's off the table. She'll get her SUV and maybe $40,000 from savings." I nodded, but there was no triumph. This was about protecting what I'd built, not spiking the football. I started seeing a therapist, Dr. Ellis, a straight-talking guy who looked like he'd weathered his own storms. "You're not mourning her," he said in our first session. "You're mourning the life you thought you had. Let it go, and you'll find your strength." He was right. I wasn't just a betrayed husband. I was Tanner Belmore, the guy who'd turned a dream into a $550,000 business. I'd rise tougher, wiser. The taproom crew kept me sane. Over pool one night, Nate clapped my shoulder. "You're writing a damn saga, man," he said, grinning. To Tanner, the guy who doesn't break. They cheered, but I just sipped my beer. The fight wasn't over. Kendra and Scott were desperate, their moves frantic, but I had one more play. A final pour to seal their fate. Not with rage, but with precision. What would you do if you held the winning hand? The fire's lit, and I'm ready to stoke it. The Denver skyline glittered under a late November frost. The kind of cold that sharpens your senses and reminds you you're alive. I was up at 5 a.m., pouring a test batch of a new stout in the brewery, the rich malt scent filling the air. Kendra and Scott Winfield were backed into a corner, their lies exposed, their schemes collapsing. But I wasn't easing up. This wasn't about vengeance. It was about protecting what I'd built and forging a future on my terms. I'm Tanner Belmore, and I don't break. I build. Cole Vance, my PI, called at 6 a.m. with the final pieces. "Scott's done," he said, voice clipped. His last client fired him yesterday. The anonymous tip about Scott's fake invoices had spread like wildfire, and his consulting business was toast. Cole had more. Scott's landlord had locked him out of his Rhino loft for $5,000 in unpaid rent, leaving him couch surfing at a buddy's dive in Aurora. Rachel, Scott's ex, had tipped off Vanessa, the realtor he'd been stringing along. Vanessa went nuclear, sending a blistering email to Scott's entire client list, exposing his scams. Cole got a copy. "Scott Winfield's a fraud. He preys on married women for money." Don't trust him. Scott's name was mud in Denver's business scene, and I hadn't lifted a finger. The truth was doing the heavy lifting. Kendra was imploding too. Her social media agency dropped her after a second client bailed, citing her personal drama. The Reddit stories threads, never naming her but close enough, had dubbed her the Denver dealbreaker, and her online presence was a graveyard. Lauren, her former friend, had cut her off completely after I leaked Kendra's texts trashing her. Kendra's Instagram was private now, her posts gone, her influencer dreams buried under the weight of her own lies. She was alone and I was just getting started. I kept my world ironclad. Belmore Brews was booming. I signed a $60,000 contract to supply a new gastropub chain, pushing my revenue towards $600,000 for the year. The bungalow, my dad's legacy, was untouchable, locked down as my inheritance. I sold a small investment property for $450,000, stashing the cash in a new account Kendra couldn't touch. Greg Harlan, my lawyer, had filed the motion to nix her alimony claim, citing her fraud and conspiracy with Scott. She's got no leverage, Greg said over a call, his voice smug. The judge will see her for what she is. Kendra made a desperate move. She showed up at the taproom at 7 p.m., eyes puffy, clutching a coffee like it was her lifeline. Finn, curled up by the bar, didn't even wag his tail. The place was buzzing, but I led her to my office, curious to see her play. Tanner, I screwed up, she said, tears spilling. Scott manipulated me. I was lost. I love you. Can we fix this? Her voice cracked, but her eyes darted, calculating. I leaned back, arms crossed. You didn't love me, I said, voice cold. You loved my life. The house, the brewery, the money. You thought you could take it all. Her face crumpled, but I didn't budge. Sign the papers, Kendra. We're through, she begged. Her words a jumble of apologies and excuses, but I pointed to the door. She left, the taproom's chatter swallowing her sobs. The next day, I met Rachel at a brewpub in Golden. She was all fire, her anger at Scott fueling her. He's broke, she said, sliding me a final flash drive. It had screenshots of Scott's panic texts to Kendra, begging her to stick it out, even as he dodged creditors. Another gem, a 2022 complaint filed with the Colorado Attorney General, accusing Scott of deceptive business practices. He's a parasite, Rachel said, her jaw tight. Kendra's just collateral damage. I nodded. They're both done. I pulled the final lever. I had Cole send an anonymous package to Alan Roth's law firm. The full dossier on Scott's fraud, bank records, Vanessa's email, the Nevada charge, the Boulder cease and desist. I included Kendra's emails plotting to seize my house and brewery, with a note. Your client's conspiring with a known grifter. Good luck. Alan wasn't dumb. He dropped Kendra within 48 hours, citing ethical concerns. Greg got the news and chuckled. She's got a public defender now. Game over. Kendra's desperation hit rock bottom. Cole caught her trying to hack my brewery's accounting software. Failed logins, flagged by my IT guy. She drained her savings to $1,500, selling her jewelry to cover rent on a $1,100 a month studio in a sketchy part of town. The GPS tracker showed her driving to Scott's last known address, only to find him gone. Scott had vanished, his phone pinging in Colorado Springs, likely hiding from debts and Vanessa's wrath. Kendra's texts to him were a one-way street. Where are you? I'm losing everything. Cole got audio of her crying in her SUV, parked outside Alan's old office. I didn't feel pity. She'd chosen this path. I wasn't cruel, though. I had Greg draft a settlement. Kendra would get her SUV, $40,000 from our joint savings, and nothing else. No house, no brewery, no alimony. If she fought, we'd crush her with the fraud evidence. Greg sent it to her new lawyer, a green kid who looked overwhelmed. She didn't reply. Her options were gone. The divorce hearing was set for mid-December. Greg was a bulldog, his briefcase packed with evidence. Texts, emails, GPS logs, Lauren's voice memos, Rachel's drives, Vanessa's email. This is a shutout, he said, straightening his tie. I prepped with Dr. Ellis, my therapist, the week before. You're not just fighting for your stuff, he said, eyes steady. You're fighting for who you are. Own that. His words were a spark. This wasn't about Kendra or Scott. It was about Tanner Belmore standing tall. The hearing was swift, surgical. Greg laid out the case like a brewer perfecting a pour. Kendra's affair, her plot to steal my house and brewery, Scott's fraud history. He played Lauren's voice memo, Kendra's voice, smug and scheming, bragging about taking Tanner for all he's got. The judge, a grizzled man in his 60s, didn't blink. Kendra's lawyer tried a weak, emotional distress angle, but Greg countered with the email about selling my house, the fake investor trap she'd fallen for. The judge's ruling was brutal. No alimony, house and brewery mine. Kendra got her SUV and $40,000. She sat frozen as the gavel dropped. I didn't look at her. I walked out, the Denver cold biting my face. Scott's life was rubble. The state launched a fraud probe into his consulting, and he was facing charges again. His social media was deleted. His name a cautionary tale in Denver's business circles. Blogs called him the mile-high hustler, and the label stuck. Rachel texted, "You ended him. Thank you." I didn't respond. It was done. Kendra moved to a $1,000 a month apartment in a rough neighborhood. Her SUV her only asset. Her agency didn't rehire her, and her LinkedIn went dormant. The Reddit stories threads kept humming, never naming her but painting a picture close enough to sting. She posted a cryptic apology on a blog. "I lost my way. I'm sorry." But the comments ripped her apart. She shut it down within hours. I didn't throw a party. I went back to the taproom, pouring a new hazy IPA for a packed Friday crowd. The bungalow felt quieter without Kendra, but Finn filled the space, his paws thumping as I grilled steaks. I started biking again, 10 miles through Wash Park at dawn, the city waking up with me. Nate and the taproom crew threw a fresh start poker night, toasting to Tanner, the unbreakable. I raised my glass, but my mind was already forward. One Saturday, I wandered into a vinyl shop in Baker, looking for a new record to spin at home. A woman was there, mid-30s, browsing folk albums. "You into Neil Young?" I asked, nodding at her pick. She grinned, eyes sharp. "Only if you don't think Dylan's overrated." I laughed and we talked music, then Denver, then nothing serious. Her name was Ellie, a photographer with a dry humor and a grounded vibe. We swapped numbers, no rush, just a flicker of something real. I wasn't diving in, but it felt good to see a new horizon. Dr. Ellis nailed it. "You didn't just survive, Tanner. You rebuilt. That's power." Sitting in my taproom now, Finn at my feet, the city alive outside, I know he's right. This story isn't just about betrayal. It's about rising, forging something stronger from the ashes. I'm Tanner Belmore, still brewing, still standing, still me. You're here because this story meant something. Don't scroll away without leaving a like, a thought, and your subscription. Revenge Forge is where real stories find their voice. And yours. What would you do if someone tried to take your life apart? How do you rebuild stronger? Drop your thoughts below. I'm listening.